Welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast broadcast. This Week in Science is back after I had to take a break last week to go to Alabama. Thank you for your patience. We have returned for our show for this week. I want to remind everyone this show is being live streamed and then will be edited for the podcast. So this stuff right now, it's going to go away. This is the time where I say, just put the thumbs up and the likes and share and all that kind of stuff. Get us in the algos so it all goes swimmingly. What else do we need to know? I don't even know anymore. We're going to start the show now. Blair, do you sound good?
I sound good. It should be like, I sound good?
Yes, maybe.
Okay.
And I know Daniel sounded good. I was talking with him earlier.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Yeah. Blair, tap your mic. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, Justin looks different today. Strange. How strange is that? Okay, everyone, we are going to start this show. Thank you. Thank you, Paul Disney. That's what I needed. Starting the show in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1034, recorded on Wednesday, October 22nd, 2025. What do aliens know anyway? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show, we will fill your heads with Jupiter, some limits, and panda microbes. But first, disclaimer. We don't know what's going on. How could aliens know what's going on? I don't even know what a gold standard is anymore. They put little words and things in the government, and that's what's supposed to determine what things are. I don't know anything anymore. I'd like to know things, so let's talk about them here on This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I wanna learn everything. I wanna fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I wanna know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki.
And a good science to you too, Blair, Daniel, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We have hello, yes. Justin's voice is not Daniel's voice. We are not pretending here. We have a different person joining the show who I'll introduce in just a minute. Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have a fantastic show lined up ahead. I've got tons of science news. I mean, first off, I referred to the gold standard, which refers to gold standard science. And there is a wonderful opinion piece in Science magazine this last week related to this topic, in which the researcher who published it goes through historical aspects of attempts to use Trojan language in legislation to lead to an attack on science. And according to this article by Stefan Lewandowski, at the very, very end, he gets to the point and he says, the introduction of a chimerical gold standard is thus best understood as yet another of at least 318 actions against science that the second Trump administration has taken since the president took office in January 2025. 318 against attacking.
That sounds low. I think we're lumping some together.
Maybe, I don't know. But what I like to think is that as things get broken, sometimes you have an opportunity to fix them. Sometimes you have an opportunity to build them better. Sometimes you have an opportunity to create good out of the seeds of a crisis. So that's why I like talking about things here on this show. I've got stories tonight. Yeah, I'm blaming Jupiter for our planet. Got to do that sometimes. Additionally, I've got some metabolic stories, ultra marathoners, and the rest of animal life. And I have a whole bunch of stories about brains, mini brains, flatworm brains, human brains, lead-filled brains. I don't know. So many brain stories. It's going to be fantastic. Blair, what's in the animal corner?
Oh, I have a very abbreviated animal corner this week. I just brought a story about panda poop. Just staying right on brand with my usual. I haven't talked about pandas in a while, I think, so it's time. Yeah.
I have actually heard people recently commenting that are not you, who are not you, commenting on condors and pandas. How are they even alive?
Yeah. Well, the condors, not to get on a whole tangent, but they're actually doing pretty good.
Except for the one that knocked his mate off a cliff. But
sure. I mean, there are always mistakes. You have to scramble. You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet, or knock a few condors off a cliff to. Anyway.
Sitting here in silence because too soon, Blair. Too soon. Not with the condors.
But no, they're doing really well. So strangely, there's a few species that we have pulled back from the, literal brink of extinction. And it looks like the condors might, in 50 years, we might look back at them as another example of, the sea otter or some other individuals that have really been down to the cheetah, been down to 50 individuals, and, the condor was down to, I think, 12. So it's wild. So anyway.
It's amazing. Yeah. We do good. We try to help sometimes, and we do, and I think that's great. So we should think about these good things. All right, Daniel, what'd you bring for the show tonight? No, okay. Everyone, I would love now to introduce our guest for the evening, Daniel Whiteson. He is a professor of physics at UC Irvine and co-author of We Have No Idea. There were two versions of that book, frequently asked questions about the universe, and now a third book, Do Aliens Speak Physics? Thank you for bringing the show tonight.
Thank you very much for having me. Very excited to be here. And unexpectedly, I do have a poop connection, but it's not alien poop.
I can't wait. This is going to be fantastic.
Well, my wife is a microbiologist here at UC Irvine, so I have bags in the freezer I've been told not to open. And
you don't want to open them.
That's amazing.
I'm a curious person, but I'm not that curious. So yeah, I've left those bags untouched.
Well, I spent many years as a zookeeper, and part of my job was to pick up poop and put it in freezers and label it very carefully to send to universities. So I understand. That is wild.
What goes around comes around. Everyone connected by poop in freezers. Okay. All right. This is This Week in Science. And in case you are not yet subscribed to the show, wherever you're watching us live Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific time, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you can subscribe to our channel, This Week in Science. That's where we are. You can also find us online at the social media places. We're usually TWIS Science, TWIS CIENCE. That's usually the account that we have. Or just look for This Week in Science. Our website is twis.org if you want show notes, links to past stories. I don't know, just to peruse things like click the link to our Zazzle Store, for instance, or maybe to our Patreon if you're interested in supporting the show in an ongoing fashion. It's a veritable cornucopia of cool stuff and ways that you can help support it going forward. But right now, share it with a friend. Make sure that someone else is listening or watching this show with you. And, because science is always better when you share it with somebody. So are we ready for the show? You ready, Blair?
Yeah.
Daniel's nodding his head like, yes, let's do this. All right. So I really do want to blame it all on Jupiter, as there are some other researchers in the galaxy that also would like to blame everything on Jupiter. And the fact that Jupiter basically started the accretion of like the first planetesimals. So planetesimals formed about 0.5 to 1 million years after the solar system kind of started being dusty and accumulating around the sun. And then there was something that happened. There were chondrite forming parent bodies, different things. These are asteroids that we find all over the place. Those were 2 to 3 million years later. Nobody really knows exactly what happened there. And so they went back in time. No, they did not. They did simulations, numerical simulations, to show that the early formation of Jupiter reshaped the natal protoplanetary disk for the entire solar system. So the abstract of the story, Science Advances, is where it's published this week. Jupiter's rapid growth depleted the inner disk gas and generated pressure bumps and dust traps that manifested as rings. These structures caused dust to accumulate and led to a second-generation planetesimal population with ages matching those of non-carbonaceous chondrites. Meanwhile, the evolving gas structures suppressed terrestrial embryos' inward migration, preventing them from reaching the innermost regions. And so Jupiter was likely the culprit in shaping or allowing the inner solar system to evolve as the rocky bodies that it did, and to basically protect it, to jumpstart the whole ecosystem, the environment in which those rings could form the planets that we now know as Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars.
So this is an update of the meme of the first quadruped who came up onto land, and it said millions of years ago some fish decided to walk on land and now I have to go to work, right? So this is billions of years ago. Jupiter did what it did and now I have to go to my 9 to 5. Thanks a lot, Jupiter.
That's pretty much it. Yes, it is the update. There have been previous simulations where they looked at gravitational forces and have simulated the movement of different bodies into the inner solar system and then back out again. And I'm just saying these things because I've read about them over the years. But Daniel, have you ever done any of these numerical simulations?
These are amazing simulations, and they tell us so much about the nature of the solar system. And I think the big takeaway message for me is that the solar system is chaotic. It seems steady on our timescales, Jupiter is Jupiter, and people have been looking at Jupiter for tens of thousands of years or whatever. But if you look at millions or billions of years, crazy stuff has happened in our solar system. And simulations suggest that, as you say, Jupiter moved into the inner solar system as well as Saturn, and then maybe another gas giant pulled it back out and was ejected from the solar system. So we think that the solar system was formed with more planets than it has now.
But that's not even considering the hypothetical Nibiru Planet X that's out there in the dark. That's just, Yeah, that
means that there might be additional planets in the solar system we haven't detected, but there are also very likely planets that formed with Jupiter and Mars and Earth and all those other planets that are now lost. In fact, we think there are billions of rogue planets out there in the solar system traveling through the galaxy without the benefit of a star. They were ejected from their families.
What?
Yeah.
didn't know that.
It's crazy, right? You see them through these amazing micro eclipses. They pass in front of a distant star and very briefly eclipse it. And you can tell that it's a planet because of the shape. It's just like how we detect exoplanets. In fact, they recently saw one where it has a moon. So they could see the eclipse happening. And then as time went on, they could see the eclipse changing because the moon was making its own mini eclipse on top of it. So it's an exo moon on a rogue planet. Science is crazy, y'all.
But now, okay, so like we have JWIST now. We've had the Hubble for ages. We've got these amazing ground-based telescopes that are looking out at the universe. Like, how is it possible that we wouldn't know all the planets in our solar system?
Yeah, that one's bugging
it
me.
is 2025.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. It's one reason is that we just don't have enough eyeballs. Like, yeah, we have JWST, but everybody wants to point it in a different place. So probably if you dedicated it to like hunting for deep, dark planets that are out there in the dim reaches of the solar system, it would find one. But there are other studies that people want to do about like super distant galaxies in the early universe that take priority. So what we need is more space telescopes. Think about all the photons that come to Earth. A tiny fraction of them have their information extracted for science. Most of them just like splash on sidewalks or on a tree somewhere. There's so much information about the universe coming to us all the time that we're ignoring. I like to fantasize about not a Dyson sphere where you're like gobbling energy from the sun, but like a sphere of space telescopes surrounding the Earth, looking out into the cosmos. Think about everything we could learn, right?
I like that better than the Starlink satellites that are getting launched up there.
I know. And
they're pointing down at us instead of out, which is what we really want.
Yeah, and so much money is spent on so somebody can stream a cat video while they're camping, and compare that to the amount of money we're spending on science. Oh, it's shocking, because the knowledge is out there. We could just buy it. If we just spent the money, we would know these things about the universe. There's literally nothing preventing us from doing it. We're just deciding not to. We're like in a candy store, our pockets are bulging with cash, and we're just walking out and not buying anything.
Well, not our pockets, to be clear.
No, exactly. Humanity's pockets.
That's what I did accidentally. Sorry, everybody. I was going to turn off this overlay. That was my mistake. That's just how, what I do when I want to disrupt conversation.
So I love that Jupiter study. It's amazing to hear about the early solar system and how it formed. And it's incredible that we can figure this stuff out, just given like what we're looking at now, hardly ever having left the planet. We can deduce this stuff. As my 13-year-old sums up science, she says, science is like, we looked at stuff and we figured out how it got there. Is that it? And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much science. That's good.
But we try and figure out how it got there with the highest degree of certainty possible by getting rid of alternative explanations, right? It's like that law of parsimony and weeding through things. Yeah. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. And then you learn something new and you go, oh, I have a new tool. I can ask a new question. Now the field got bigger again. Okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. But because of that, you're getting improved resolution on the whole story. So we can't ever get rid of the human bias, but we can try the best we can, right? To be as impartial as possible. It's really good. I love that Jupiter story too. And you mentioned the data aspect of things. And I do know that one of the things you do, Daniel, is work with, you're interested in machine learning, and you've worked on the Atlas instrument at CERN. And we all know that Large Hadron Collider and Atlas and all the things that there's so much data. So, and this is not the telescope data. This is atom smasher data, right? So are we going to get, like, what are we doing with this data? Are we all putting it on Google like G Drive, or is it like, what is it like? How are we managing it?
You're right. It's an overwhelming amount of data. Every 25 nanoseconds, we collect data on hundreds of millions of channels. So it's just an onslaught. It's petabytes and petabytes of data. Most of it we throw away because when you smash two protons together, usually what happens is two protons come out. And so it's kind of boring. But the interesting stuff is rare. And so what we do is we filter through the ordinary everyday collisions for the interesting bits when something new and weird popped up and try to save just those. So we have this system, it's called a trigger system, that makes a very fast keep it or kill it decision. And it's important because if you kill it, it's gone forever. There's no like, hey, let's go look through the trash. Did we empty the desktop? It's gone. And that's scary. But we're pretty good at it by now, and so we filter out the good stuff, but only if we know what we're looking for. So there could be like weird unexpected stuff in the trash, unfortunately, because it's just too much data to keep all of it.
When you say we weed through it, do you mean there's an algorithm that's scanning it for you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, how does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not like a committee or anything. It has to happen every 25 nanoseconds.
Yeah.
So we have super fast machine learning that operates actually on hardware that makes really fast decisions, keep it or kill it. And it's multi-steps. So the first one makes a simple, fast decision. The second one has a lower rate, so it has a little bit more time to make a more complex decision. Then there's a third level, and if it passes that, it gets stored to tape, and then we eventually analyze it and hope to discover something mind-blowing. But yeah, it's all done algorithmically for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And have you discovered something mind-blowing?
I signed an NDA, so I can't tell you.
Oh, come on. I mean, that was years ago, but come on.
Well, we discovered the Higgs boson, but that was about 10 years ago. That was very exciting. And
Gosh, that was 10 years ago.
I know, more than that, actually. And since then, we haven't found anything new. We've measured the particles we know about super duper precisely, looking for deviations. Like the theorists tell us this particle will have this property, and we measure it. And so far, everything lines up exactly the way we expected. No evidence of anything new so far. But, that's research. You never know when you turn on a new telescope or land on a new planet. Are you going to be inundated in crazy discoveries, or is it going to be dust and rubble and nothing interesting? That's research. And nobody'd ever looked at these particles before. And so we didn't find anything, but we don't know what's around the corner.
Aside from other little subatomic particles that maybe you haven't isolated entirely yet within the noise, the energy spectra that you look at, have we almost gotten all the standard model particles? Like, have we done that?
Yeah, we have. All the particles that are predicted, we found them. And so that's cool. We have 6 leptons, we have 6 quarks, we have a particle for each of the forces, except gravity. Nobody understands gravity. So the standard model is what we call complete, but it's also, we know it's not the final story. Yeah. It's like looking at the periodic table and say, do we have all the elements? Yeah. Well, but there's more to it, right? You want to explain the patterns of behavior. And we now know the patterns in the periodic table come from the way the electron orbitals fill, right? So there are patterns in the fundamental particles that we don't understand. And we suspect they're due to the way the tiny little particles inside them click together and interact and do something, but we haven't been able to see inside. So we're still at the level of looking at those patterns among the fundamental particles and wondering, what does it all mean? And in 100 years, is everybody going to think we're stupid for not having seen it because it seems so obvious? But, here we are in the forefront of knowledge. We don't know. It's clueless, right? Science seems so easy in hindsight, but when you're in the middle of it, you're like, I don't know what this means.
Right. How do I test that the best way? Do we have the tools?
Exactly.
How can we get there? Does this really mean what I think it means? Or is there something unplugged? Blair, did you want to talk about animals or anything?
Oh, yes. I have a very quick story. It's just a couple sentences here, but I think, in the honor of bringing both pandas and squirrels today, this was the perfect opportunity. But just, groundbreaking study, in where squirrels like to bury their food. Yes. And so this is just a study looking at where in urban environments, these are gray squirrels, where they like to bury their food and where they like to forage. And overall, they found that consistent road noise is actually a predictor of a higher level of squirrel behavior than they would expect. And so it looks like they're actually using that as an opportunity to create cover to protect them from predators. So if there's a lot of road noise, that means there's a lot of traffic. That means there's less likelihood for there to be cats or coyotes or birds of prey or whatever it is that are trying to grab and eat squirrels. And so there's actually kind of a funny bell curve where you actually get an increase in squirrel activity with some road noise. Versus, you'd think more people, less activity from squirrels. Of course, squirrels are kind of a special case because they are very easily not fully imprinted upon, but like habituated to human activity, almost to the point where they're insistent upon receiving food from humans. We actually have had a couple cases in Northern California up here of squirrels attacking people because they're not rabid or anything like that. They just have been fed by humans. And so they're so used to being fed by humans that when a human is not feeding them, they go, hey, give me that. And it gets violent. But so squirrels are an interesting case here. I don't think this is an across the board situation. You would need to kind of repeat this study with a lot of different wild animal species that are found in urban environments to see if those other species have a similar reaction to road noise. But I would wager that squirrels are kind of special in that case. So.
Squirrels definitely are special. That's for sure.
It's amazing how much cuter squirrels are than rats, and I think it's just the fluffy tail.
And their little ears. And
don't trust it.
The squirrel ears with the fuff on the top. Yeah.
Yes, well, but they're also so much more bold because they know they're cute and they can be out and they can be right in your face and you don't go like you do for a rat. And so they get, they get too bold.
I
don't do that for rats either. Yeah, I like rats.
I had a soft spot for rats, but still squirrels are cuter.
Well, and which would be more welcome on your front porch if you were not expecting it, a squirrel or a rat? And why is that?
I'm not sure exactly why.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess squirrels don't eat garbage as much.
Yeah,
I don't know about that.
Diseases into your house.
Yeah, less likely to have hantavirus.
Those are mice and voles.
I know.
But
yeah, I don't know. I think that there is an expectation because of the plague and everything, right? That like rats bring disease and pestilence and plague. But it's in my experience, squirrels are more of a nuisance.
This is why it's pandas and squirrels when we talk about the animals that Blair takes issue with. The squirrels are one group.
Are you anti-panda?
Yeah, we're gonna get into it. But yes, the squirrels are a particular case because I worked at the zoo for a really long time and they got so bold that they were a problem. And there were a couple times where they didn't quite attack me, but we'll just say they pushed some limits that I did not forgive. So anyway.
The squirrels also, I think the road noise issue is very interesting because we know that, and I think it's interesting also that they're digging, right? So that in itself is going to make noise. So the sound of the road, the cars on the road is going to cover any digging noise that they're making. The vibration would be able to also cover any animals that are going to be looking for disruption in the vibrational surface. And then we also have birds. We've seen over and over again, rooks, crows, ravens, jays that drop their whelks, their nuts into roadways in the way of cars. And so far, I don't think there have been enough studies to really, really say that certain, some birds do this on purpose, but the evidence is pointing that direction. So,
yeah.
It seems as if the birds are using the cars as tools to crack the nuts, to crack the whelks.
But you need to set up some laboratory testing for that. You need to get some crows. You need to put mesh over the top of a speedway, and then you need to get some cars on the speedway, then offer them up some different tool options to open their nuts, and then they're definitely using the cars.
Double blind squirrel study.
Yes, exactly.
Throw a hammer
Yeah.
You know what?
I mean, they'll make their own hammer. They're self-sufficient.
It's true. Speaking of things that you make that you want to eat, or if you want to eat, how much do you eat? How much energy do you burn every day or any day for that matter? Researchers have been trying to figure out for a while if there are any rules to metabolism, basically to see if there are rules to how temperature, how performance is related to the not just internal, but also external forces. They just published a study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The work actually shows that there seems to be some serious constraint when it comes to species' ability to optimize within certain temperature ranges. This also has to do with metabolism, how much heat you produce, how much heat you can lose. There's physics involved here. Thermodynamics, to be exact. Yeah. Anyway, the researchers, with respect for all living things, are saying that this study that they're putting forward they're calling a universal thermal performance curve. It seems to apply to all species and dictates responses to temperature change. And it doesn't seem like any species has broken free of those constraints. Go from that into another study just published in Current Biology this week. Researchers looked at a cohort of ultra endurance athletes. These are people who train and compete at very, very extreme levels. So they had 14 highly trained elite world-class ultra endurance athletes. These are people who are doing ultra marathons, 50, 100, 150 miles of running at any given time, and who are using a lot of calories. So they compared basal metabolic rate to the maximum metabolic rate that the individuals used over time. And they were able to apply a particular measure to be able to look at how much energy these people were using at any particular time. And basically things had to balance out. So if they used 10,000 calories on a given day or over the course of a competition, that had to be balanced out over time with changes in behavior. And they actually found that these individuals seemed to have behavior modifications that kept them from fidgeting, that had them like sitting still and napping more often, so that each individual, or the average for all the individuals, is there was only a 2.5 multiple of the basal metabolic rate over about 28 weeks. So there's, what they're saying, a ceiling to our maximum metabolic rate. You can exceed it, but not for long periods of time. And there is a consequence. Your body will start eating itself and breaking down. If you have to go 7,000, 8,000 calories a day for extended periods of time, your body will not adjust to that.
So no matter how much you eat, no matter how much you try to fuel that higher metabolic need, the factory can't stay open longer. Like we've made all the energy we can, folks. We're at capacity. That's wild.
Yep. So they say that there may be, because their sample size was like 14 people. So of course there might be exceptional individuals who can exceed what seems to be this ceiling. But for this small sample, it gives a basis for looking forward to find out if humans can exceed their basal metabolic rate and what the ceiling actually is.
And you said this is all youth?
No, not they're not youth. They're just highly trained, elite, and world-class athletes. So they're probably...
Sorry, I thought you said student athletes. Okay.
No. They're ultra endurance athletes. That's also...
Okay. So that's the other thing I'm wondering is, This is obviously the
Age.
beginning of a lot of different kind of metabolic limit studies that could happen, but I'd be curious to see what the multiplier was at different stages of life. Like if I'm a teenager, can I push it to 4 times versus 2.5? When I'm
That's a really
40, can I only push it to 2? Like, you know what I mean? Is there a difference in flexibility or capacity, or is it constant throughout your life, right? I think that'd be interesting to find out.
I think that's a fascinating question. I mean, we know that a lot of youth are athletes, and that a lot of competition occurs at a very, very advanced endurance level at a very young age, and we know that there are trade-offs. For it changes your hormone levels. You have different, and there are injuries that occur at certain places, and so there's management that needs to happen to ensure that that individuals, can actually continue to compete at the high level that they do. So the question is, how do you do that? How do you, and I think this kind of study, or for an athlete, for somebody who's interested in this, I think that is going to be some of the, the next best questioning is, how do you take this information and use it to optimize your performance over time? Do you run, Daniel, or cycle, or are you an ultra marathoner?
I'm not, but bizarrely, my son turned out to be an athlete. He's a long distance runner and a cross country competitor, and he broke the school record for the 3 mile, and it's up on the wall in the gym, which astounded me because I'm no kind of athlete, and neither was my wife. And so I don't know if that's proof of cosmic ray mutation or something, but he definitely got some athletic genes, and now he's off running in college. So it was very exciting. And I've definitely seen what you're talking about. He runs at a very high level, and he's constantly working. He's like at the edge of is this an injury or is it just pain? And there's managing that level.
Some pain is fine. It's good for you.
If you're doing it right, it hurts. But also if you're doing it wrong, it hurts differently. And,
yes.
And knowing the difference is important.
It's crucial. Oh my gosh.
And do you think that this kind of thing is common across species? I mean, here we did a study on humans, but I've also heard that humans are unique in their endurance capacity. Like other animals can run fast or climb or whatever, but humans have the best endurance on Earth. Is there anything else that approaches that?
No, not that we know of, especially for the running or walking, right? That is why we have people who go and do these ultra marathons. We have the old stories of, am I going to talk about, was it Greece, the Olympics, right? For it was the messengers who would run basically a marathon to be able to send messages back and forth. But I think what we are seeing is that there are certain individuals that they have adaptations that allow their muscles to make use of oxygen better, to metabolize more sustainably, that there are variations. And it's not just something you can train and do better, but if you don't have the adaptations and the genes to allow you to do it, then I think this stuff is really fascinating.
Amazing.
Well, we're such a strange animal in so many ways, and that we have, in many cases, unlimited, unbridled access to nutrients, right? And so I think it's really hard to compare and contrast to wild animals in a lot of cases, because there are animals that do crazy feats metabolically. There are sea lions and elephant seals that can dive. Elephant seals can dive for over an hour without breathing, and their metabolism slows down to almost nothing while they're doing that, and then they come back up. Other animals will haul out for months and barely eat, even though they're mammals, and so there's all sorts of different crazy extreme versions of this, where availability of nutrients don't match metabolic output. Metabolic output will tank or will skyrocket over a short amount of time, like animals that migrate, that are swimming or flying or running nonstop for days or weeks, right? And so I think that we're so different, because we have our constant availability of nutrients. We have ability to rest. We're not running from predators. We're not hunting for food. And so it's like we have all of these kind of constants. And so when we are pushing ourselves metabolically, we are doing so often out of choice. And so it is a completely different context, right? So yeah, it's I think I'd be interested to see what things look like in wild animals as well because of that. Because like I would wager, for example, that elephant seals, they go from their basic metabolic rate, they go down to, I don't even remember what it is. College was so long ago. But, a fraction of their metabolic rate while they're diving. So do they have a basement, right? The opposite of a ceiling. Do they have I can't go past half of my basal metabolic rate. But similarly, penguins, when they're swimming, when they're migrating, do they have a maximum of their metabolic rate that they can reach, right? When they're sprinting from one space to another because it's too cold or they're in between land masses. So
deep mysteries of the universe.
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I think we've got the endurance running thing down. I'm not sure we have the diving like a sea lion down.
Yeah, well, in the case of elephant seals, you also have special pressurized eyeballs so that your eyeballs don't implode under the pressure, right? So there's other things that you need to get that done.
Goggles. Wow. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is This Week in Science, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the show tonight. If you have not yet, head over to twis.org, click on the Patreon link, and help support the show in an ongoing fashion. We are listener supported. Your donations, your support on a monthly basis helps keep this show going, helps make sure that we've got cables and microphones. I mean, we can't do anything about the Amazon, servers going down. That's not something you're paying for. But if it comes to making sure that we're here every week and bringing you science, getting to talk with you, please help support the show. It really does make a difference to how we're able to show up here. Also, there's our Zazzle Store, TWIS.org. Click on that Zazzle link. Check out some of the cool merchandise. Some of it helps to support the show as well. Every purchase goes to making you happy because you have TWIS stuff. It's great. Yes. And share with a friend. That would be amazing. Everything you do for TWIS is a gift. We can't do it without your support. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, let's come on back right now. And I'm going to once again reintroduce our guest this evening. Daniel Whiteson is the author of a book that's just out, and you too can find out whether aliens speak physics. That's right. Daniel Whiteson hosts a podcast with Kelly Weinersmith. And additionally, what's the name of that podcast?
Daniel and Kelly's Extraordinary Universe.
Extraordinary Universe.
Because the universe is extraordinary.
And it's your universe because you're talking about it in the podcast. It's fantastic. You've also been part of creating a PBS show for kids that inspires curiosity. Eleanor is the name of that one. Are you still working on that?
Yeah, Eleanor Wonders Why is a show on PBS. It's for 3 to 5 year olds about life science and curiosity. And the goal of the show is to teach kids to learn to answer questions on their own by using basic practices of science, and to show adults that it's okay when kids ask you a question to say, I don't know, let's figure it out. You don't have to know all the answers to talk about science with your kids. And so that show is just finishing its production of its 2nd season, which is a lot of fun. And so new episodes are coming on PBS right now. Because of the current climate, we don't know if PBS will still be a thing. Corporation for Public Broadcasting, sadly, is no longer. We were also supported kindly by Department of Education, our TL grant, which is no longer. And so things are looking difficult, but we'll see about a 3rd season.
My fingers are crossed for you and for all of the parents who are out there who would love some additional help answering questions with their kids. Yeah. I think it'd be great. Blair's going to be looking forward to that fairly soon. That's right. So your book, Do Aliens Speak Physics? Do they? Give us the short and dirty.
Yeah. The book asks whether or not we can, when aliens arrive, make a mental connection with them using physics. Because I was always told, and this is one reason I got into physics, was that physics was sort of special among human sciences in that it's bigger than Earth. Like, yeah, it's cool to study pandas and understand life and everything here on Earth. It's fantastic and important, but we expect that the things we learn might just be limited and relevant to stuff here on Earth. But physics is supposed to be about the whole universe, and like gravity is here, as gravity is there, and we see gravity working the same way in distant galaxies, etc. So the idea is that, physics asks questions that are bigger than humanity. And so it might be that not only humanity is asking those questions. And I've long fantasized about the scenario where aliens show up and we can make a connection using physics, and then they can give us some answers, because we have big questions about the nature of the universe that are not answered. Like, where did it come from? What is it made out of? What's inside black holes? What is space anyway? All these things we don't understand. It would be wonderful if aliens, who might have been doing science for millions of years, could just tell us, could just leap us forward in our own scientific future. So that was my fantasy. And, folks like Carl Sagan tell you that we're fairly confident that aliens will do physics the way we do, because the same laws of physics apply everywhere. But the book asks whether that would really happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same laws of physics apply everywhere. But if you are coming from a different referential frame, a different perceptual frame. Blair's a zoologist, so if we could imagine a planet of squirrels, how would they?
Why would you do that?
Blair, do you have PSSD, post squirrel stress syndrome, or whatever disorder? Yeah, and that's a fun joke, but you're exactly right. Just because the laws of physics, or we think that our laws of physics apply everywhere, doesn't mean that the people in those other places would describe them the same way. So really the book is about the philosophical question of, is physics the map or is it the territory? Like, we're looking at the universe through a human lens. Can we disentangle how much of it is the universe and how much of it is this single human lens we all have in common? And until the aliens arrive, we won't be able to tell how much our humanity has distorted the physics that we've interpreted, and how much of our humanity is in the physics that we've interpreted, and how alien physics might be shockingly alien. And so the book goes through a bunch of arguments for how physics could be essentially invented or discovered.
You mentioned earlier, we were talking about the exoplanets, and you were talking about the rogue planets that might cross in front of a star, and so you've got this eclipse of and at one point in time, we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, right? The Earth, everything centered around the Earth, because of course we saw the sky move around the Earth at night, and so our way of looking at it. And now we have these new eyes on the sky to be able to show us new things. What kind of logical pathway did you go down to try and imagine, say, if you were on another planet, if you were an alien? How do you get into that mindset to think of it from I'm not a human anymore. I'm not on planet Earth. I'm not a human.
Well, you got started exactly the right way. You have to question, you have to identify and then question the assumptions that you're making and wonder, is this really the only way we could have done it? And we have a terrible history of this, right? We make these assumptions that seem reasonable. Well, we look like we're the center of the cosmos, so obviously the Earth is at the center. And we also tend to fall for the flattering assumptions, like, ooh, the Earth is at the center, therefore we're important, right? So it's easy to therefore also say things like, well, we figured out physics and it seems to work, so therefore aliens will. And that puts us at the intellectual center, right? It says that human physics is like the physics, that everyone out there will also be doing the same stuff and working on string theory and all sorts of stuff. And that's very tempting to believe. And my personal fantasy of an intergalactic science conference is very fun to think about, but because it's so tempting, I think it needs extra skepticism. So what I tried to do is look at all those assumptions and ask, like, well, how do we know? Are we really sure? And you can start from the very basics, like, how do we know that aliens do science at all? That aliens wonder why about the universe, that they have the same curiosity. Blair was earlier wondering, like, I wonder if this, I wonder if that, I wonder if you did this study, what would the answer be? That's interesting. That's wonderful. And that's a very human thing, to be so curious and to want to know about the universe. But that's also emotional, right? It's part of being human, and it's different from person to person. One person is super interested in physics, another person interested in poop, another person interested in geology, somebody else interested in languages. We have an amazing diversity of science on Earth because of the personal reactions people have to these questions. And so to say that aliens will automatically be curious like we are, and will automatically develop the same sort of methods to build these mental models about the universe, that's a big leap. That's a big assumption that we have that in common with them.
The idea of like mental models. So like as a cognitive scientist from, I studied bird brains. And so it was this comparative brain and behavior work trying to come up, okay, apes, we have a theory of mind, right? They can like look at another animal and go, oh, this squirrel is going to dig in the soil and hide its nut.
Love your ape voice. Yeah.
Thank you. This is how the apes are talking. Yes. But forever, and Blair, like in the animal corner, we're constantly like suddenly a scientist did a study that shows an animal is smarter than anyone thought.
Yeah.
Or, oh, an animal is clearly intelligent, like in this particular way. And so I think it's a really interesting, the way that your book goes forward with these scenarios and delving into this perspective of, okay, how do we put on the skeptical hat, but also how do we really try and consider the cognitive kind of philosophical aspects of what aliens would be interested in? I've read plenty of sci-fi books, and some of them you have spacefaring aliens who were not curious, but they leapfrogged into the stories. It's not sci-fi, not real. Yeah, whatever. But I don't know. Do you think that curiosity is necessary?
It's a fascinating question. I don't know if curiosity is necessary, because the only thing we can do is like look at our one example here on Earth and try to extrapolate from that. And even here on Earth, we have been developing technology and getting better at stuff long before we had any idea how it all worked, before curiosity helped us. Think about like bread and cheese. These things are, you have to be a master of the microbes to make these things work. And we had no idea. We didn't even know germs existed until fairly recently. So we developed these technologies through trial and error without knowing, just knowing like, here's how you do it. The same way, like I will go into the kitchen and make a souffle, and like, I don't understand the food chemistry. I don't really want to understand the food chemistry. I just want to eat the souffle. The same way, like a sword maker knows how to make a sword without understanding like the condensed matter physics of the nanostructures that make that thing super sharp instead of super dull. They know how to do it. They don't know why. They don't understand it. So we were technological
my
before.
Cell phone.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how it works.
So humanity was technological for a long time before we were scientific. So it's certainly possible to develop technology without being scientific. And, we tend to think about, oh, look, we have developed science. Now we have science, so we can use science to understand the universe. Science itself is something that's evolving. It's changing. The way we do science today is very different from the way Galileo did it. Look at the studies you pointed out earlier. They have simulations about the early solar system. So now we have this like new element of science, computational simulations, incredibly powerful tools for doing science. Galileo couldn't have imagined it. What future elements could we add to science? Have aliens added to science? So they would look at our science and be like, y'all are barely even doing science. I mean, that's the way we did science a million years ago. So I think we tend to over accentuate the way that we're doing things now and imagine that we're at some final step, that we have the science badge and we're going to keep doing it this way forever. But it's just a moment in our history. We don't even have the word scientist until about the 1830s. Right. Science is a fairly recent thing. And so It is hard to imagine. And, you know, on your other point about like, what is it like to be an ape, or what is it like to be in the minds of these creatures? You know, it's really sobering, because we have these other intelligent creatures on Earth. And if you imagine we're going to be able to communicate with aliens, why haven't we been able to talk to whales and dolphins, right? Like, they evolved in the same climate as us, in the same biosphere. We have a lot of senses in common, and yet we can't crack that code. So to imagine we're gonna be able to crack an alien code is like, wow, that's ballsy. You know, there's lots of human codes we've never cracked. You know, there's so many like written languages from ancient cultures. Nobody knows what they say, what they mean. And these are like biologically identical humans to us, living on the same planet and with a similar culture. In many cases, we know about their culture. We have all sorts of cultural context, and we still can't crack the code. So aliens are very likely to be much more alien than we expect.
So this is actually a pretty good argument for the use of AI or machine learning, is that I keep seeing these research articles coming out related to using AI to decode dog barks or whale song, or trying to be able to speak languages, right? And so on one hand, I could say like, okay, so this is actually a pretty good reason to keep cooking on that, because if we ever do end up speaking with intelligent life from another planet, maybe the AI will help us kind of like decode what's happening. But then again, that is making a lot of assumptions about how communication works, that it would follow similar rules of syntax or context that we use and animals on Earth use. And so, you know, there's still a lot of leaps that there would be similarities that we would be able to draw upon. And so I think what you're bringing up is such an important question of, just like we can say like, you know, I know that what I see and I call red is not necessarily what you see and you call red, that this is all about perspectives, and that what we consider curiosity or communication or scientific method or, you know, any of these things might be completely, you know, forgive the word, but like alien to another life form that has none of the context that we have grown up around.
Yeah, that's exactly right. On your point of using AI to translate alien languages, I'm all for it. But, you know, the challenge that AI will face is the same challenge that we face, which is, how do you know when you get it right? Like, if you intercept,
what a good point.
Right? If you intercept some human code, right? Your teenager is writing in their diary in some code, they don't want you to read it. You know when you've cracked it, because it goes from gobbledygook to, oh, it's talking about where they went on Thursday, blah, blah, blah. But alien language, like, you could try to decode it, but like, how do you know when you got it right? It could be so alien, you're looking at it and you don't even recognize it. And I think more deeply than that, there's this question of like how aliens experience the universe. Like, we know that our senses are limited, that we only interact with a tiny slice of what's out there in the universe. And we tend to think of our senses like giving us a direct revelation of reality. Like, the room I'm in, I know that my computer is here and whatever, but there's a lot more in this room. There's dark matter, there's neutrinos that I'm not sensing. So our sense of the universe internally is limited and defined by our perceptions. We talked earlier about like space telescopes. These are like technological extensions of our senses, but crucially, they don't change like our mental model of the universe. You notice when you look at an image from JWST, you don't see it in the original infrared. It'd be invisible to you. When you talk about gravitational waves, they don't show it to you in terms of like the waves. They play it for you like a sound. We're always translating things back into our own sensorium, because that's the way we make sense of the universe. And so if aliens have a very different sensorium, or like octopus, right? They have like distributed brains. What's it like to be an octopus? We have no idea. What's it like to be an alien? That's going to really shape the questions they ask about the universe, and I think more crucially, how they accept the answers, because you always want answers in your own familiar, intuitive language. And that's going to be different for aliens as it is for us. And so we could end up in a situation where like they have answers that don't really make sense to us. And our physics, they're like, what are you even talking about? You know, even if we get past the communication questions.
So in the early part of the book, you reference the Drake equation, and which is the equation that kind of says, if there is intelligent life in the universe that could be spacefaring that we could meet, like, could it be there? What's the probability, right? So it's a probabilistic calculation of that. And you add a few factors to it for your book. Can you talk about like those factors and why you added them?
Yes.
And what do you think it's useful? Do you think that is actually, should we like officially change the Drake equation?
Well, I mean, Drake's equation tries to calculate how many intelligent civilizations there are out there that could send us a message. But I was interested in more than that. I don't just want there to be an intelligent civilization that sends us a message. I want to make mental contact and talk about the secrets of the universe. And so there's a sort of a subset of Drake's aliens that I'm interested in, the ones that do physics the way we do, so we can get like answers to our physics questions. And so I added a few terms. I added terms like, one, what are the fraction of those civilizations that are technological that do science? We don't know that it's 100%, as we just talked about. Another term is communication. Even if they can send us messages, can we make mental contact? Can we decode those messages? Because every communication has a translation step where you go from idea to symbol, and that translation, the assignment of ideas to symbols, is cultural and arbitrary, and so inverting it might be impossible. And then there's the question of, are they interested in the same questions as we are? Do they see the same emergent structures in the universe? Do they ask about those same things? And then finally, do they have the same kind of answers as we do? Like, are they interested in the same things? Would they accept our answers? Could they be working on a completely orthogonal theory of physics that also works? And what does that even mean about the nature of truth?
Like AI, didn't they come up with like a completely different way of explaining things?
Exactly. Or, could they come up with a theory of physics that we just don't even understand? Like, are we biologically limited from understanding super advanced alien physics? So those are the things I put together to extend the Drake equation to ask the question, what fraction or how many aliens are there out there that we could have this physics conversation that I think Carl Sagan imagined and that young Daniel imagined when he was getting into physics? Is that really possible? Because that's what I wanted to figure out.
So your math, do you think it's possible in an infinite universe with an infinite?
I think two things. I think it's very unlikely because a lot of things have to fall into place. Like the beauty of the Drake equation, I mean, it's not complicated like the Schrodinger equation. It's just a bunch of numbers multiplied together. But the beauty of it is that that structure reinforces how you have to have everything fall into place. Like, it doesn't matter if you got lots and lots of planets if none of them have life on it. And it doesn't matter if a lot of them have life on it if it's all just green slime. You have to have everything fall into place to have intelligent aliens communicate with you. In the same way, you need a lot of philosophical assumptions to go the right way for there to be aliens out there we can talk to who are interested in the same stuff, whose answers we can digest, who can help us understand the universe. It's very unlikely. On the other hand, there are probably lots of them, and you only need one. Right? I would accept just one civilization of advanced aliens that could help us understand the universe. That's all it takes, because, I hope there's just one answer, and I'm happy to accept any of it.
So one of the things you said that I thought was really interesting was talking about the way that they would communicate with us, and that the way that we communicate would make sense to each other, and we'd be able to kind of create almost like a narrative amongst each other in the way that we talk. Because one of the first things I thought of is the Voyager Golden Record, which I have a copy of here.
Oh, how cool.
Aside from the images, I've listened to the actual albums.
Wow.
And the thing that always struck me about it is that it feels extremely random. There's no message. It's just like, here's some whale songs, and here's some people singing, and here's some babies crying, and here's a symphony, and there's no narrative, right? It's just a bunch of stuff that we put on a record that's like, here's some things that make humans, which really was like, here's some things that usually make like Western white humans, but here's some human stuff, right? And here's some Earth stuff. And so I think that's the other thing is like, do we need to be more strategic in what we send out into space so that it is a narrative, so it indicates that we want to communicate, that there's a way that we talk, so that if they have an AI that can be trained on what we send out into the universe, that they're not sending us back babies crying and whale songs, right? Like, I think that it has to go both ways.
They're sending back a virus that can infect all of our technical systems, and then we are at their mercy. Yeah.
Wow.
Back in the dark ages, for
Interstellar
sure.
paranoia there. Nice. Well, I think that's a good example.
It's because the robots come first, and it's world robot domination. So
right.
I think that's a great example, because imagine if you got a message from space and you were playing around with it and trying to translate it, and you turned it into sound, and then it sounded like alien babies crying. Would you think, oh yeah, I've got it right? You'd be like, no, this is just garbage. Like, it's hard to even know. And what do they intend, right? What does this even mean? And, a question about being more intentional and building a narrative. Before the Voyager probe was the Pioneer plaque, right? This is what got sent out on the Pioneer probes. And this is what Carl Sagan and Frank Drake put together. And it's much simpler, right, than the Voyager record, which has, audio encoding, and like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I could build something to decode that right now. This is just pictograms, and they tried to be strategic about it, and they tried to avoid obvious cultural influences and to be universal. And they drew diagrams to represent like the hydrogen atom and these kinds of things, because they were hoping to find some kind of symbols that they thought were going to be universal, that only had one interpretation. But that's impossible, right? It's the assignment between ideas and symbols is always arbitrary. And so inverting it, you have to know the culture in order to decode these symbols, right? And so, for example, I took these symbols and I showed them to a bunch of physics grad students, and I gave them the afternoon and a bunch of donuts, and I said, what do you think?
Figure out what do they mean?
Exactly. And they're young enough to have never seen this before. And this is like the perfect audience, because they're biologically human.
Is this because like they're younger than cassette tapes?
Exactly. They're like the Pioneer what? Yeah. And this is like much easier than the task aliens will face, because again, these are biological humans. They grew up in the same culture as Carl Sagan. They're physics grad students, right? Who has more in common with Carl Sagan than these folks? And they couldn't make any progress. They had no idea what these things meant, right? Because they represent like not just like one depiction of the hydrogen atom, but like depiction of the hydrogen atom as like orbitals, the way like Niels Bohr drew it. The human concept of an atom from like about a 10-year period, about 100 years ago, right? Nobody depicts an hydrogen atom that way now and didn't before. And so, it's very reflective of our culture. So as much as I love looking for aliens and the SETI project, I'm not optimistic that they're ever going to get a signal that they can decode, which is why in the book I focus on the much, much easier scenario of the aliens get here. They arrive. And I saw someone
they already know about us. Everything's all good, and they're coming. They're here.
Exactly. Somebody in the comments said aliens will never come here, and I hope you're wrong. But in that scenario, we have a lot easier problem to solve, which is like we have some cultural context in common because they're here. We literally are in the same place. We can like point to stuff and say apple or donut or doggy or whatever, and hope to build from there some sort of dictionary we can use to establish communication. But I think if it's just messages across space without any cultural context, that's going to be really hard, maybe impossible.
I mean, even one of the images is of the Arecibo Radio Observatory, which is kind of broken.
Exists,
not there anymore.
That's true. That's sad. That's sad.
Yeah. I was that one hit home. That one really hurt. But that is, I think that is the part of science that, as scientists, I think is sometimes forgotten, which is the cultural context. And there is no separating science from the cultural context, even though, as I said earlier, we scientists try to unbias and, make it as far from human interpretation as possible, but you can't do that. And then it's in the world, and then it's of the time. And so how do you like, aside from being able to understand and use a signal from an alien species with an alien culture in its own space and time, how would we ever design against that? I think. How do you make it timeless?
Yeah, it's impossible to know. And, we can't fully unwrap our human biases until we meet the aliens. But one thing we can do is try to make sure we're using as many different human cultures as possible. This is one reason why like cultural diversity in science is important, because people come in with different assumptions and different questions and different curiosities, and they help you realize, oh boy, I was asking this question this way. This is another interesting question. And even more than like our current diversity in science, we had this amazing sort of natural experiment here on Earth where we had the development independently of mathematics and astronomy and sort of proto-science in the Americas with the Mayans, and in the Far East with the Chinese, and in the Middle East with the Greeks and the Sumerians, the Babylonians, and we can compare and contrast those in the historical record to see like, wow, which directions are inevitable, which directions are random and cultural. Unfortunately or fortunately, those cultures are no longer distinct and separate. So the experiment is sort of ended prematurely. It'd be fascinating, like, to figure out now, like, what would the Mayans be studying if they were still doing science today and the Spaniards hadn't, burned all of their books. I love thinking about that. I read a fantastic science fiction novel about that by Tad Williams once. Anyway, nice. For the book, I did dig into those records and look at like, how did the Mayans approach this versus the Chinese? And, the story is similar across the continents, that everybody saw patterns in the sky and then tried to understand them and used math to understand them. The kinds of math they used are different, though. Like the Chinese were very algebraic. They look at like patterns in tables of numbers. And the Greeks, of course, very geometrical. They think of answers as like, where are things in space, shapes and circles. And the Mayans sort of in between. Like they had very advanced mathematics. They had more accurate predictions for where the planets were than the Europeans when the Spaniards arrived.
So I'm wondering,
we don't have a lot of their records.
Someone earlier, Paul Disney said, made a reference to base 10 math, right? Where there has been math that's base 12, base 60. There are multiple, and I think it was Mayans who were base 60. And so the difference in the way the numbers calculate, it's not, the math is still there, and the way it works, I guess, still works. Like, did you look at that deep enough to like be like, oh, there's some real differences here, or you're like, oh yeah, it's all kind of similar, just different bases?
Yeah, well, it is quite different. The Chinese, again, they're algebraic. And so if you read the early Chinese writing about their theories about the cosmos, it doesn't quite make sense to you if you're a geometric thinker, because you're reading it and you're like, so what is where exactly, and where do I put stuff? And that's just not how they were thinking about it. They weren't thinking geometrically. Most of us are, have grown up in the West, and the way of thinking is geometric because of the Greeks and the Babylonians. And so we're so geometrical as thinkers that some of that early
I don't think I was until Pythagoras, like that theorem.
Exactly. And it wasn't until Descartes that we understood that, like, oh, geometry and algebra are actually the same thing. They're just different ways to tackle the same fundamental concepts, like how two equations on a page, you can solve them algebraically for the solution, or you can graph them and see where they intersect. It's exactly the same fundamental mathematics, just two different sets of structures that turn out to be equivalent to each other, which is super fascinating. But you ask a really deep question about mathematics, and I saw somebody in the comments say like, well, certainly math will have in common with the aliens, even if not physics. And that seems compelling, and it seems likely, but it also, how do we know? Right? We do science with math, and we find math everywhere we do science. And in fact, math sometimes leads us to answers. Like there's cases in the history of science where people have just used mathematics to say, well, this would be prettier mathematically if we had this other term. And then it turns out, oh, yeah, we have that term. It exists in the universe. So math seems to lead us to answers, but we don't know if it's actually necessary or just very, very useful. And I read this mind-blowing book. It's called Science Without Numbers, by a philosopher who said, look, this idea of like having a number line and putting things on a number line, that's just an abstract concept that works in your head, but you don't need it. You don't need those numbers to do science. And he developed a theory of gravity without any numbers. And it's not a very nice theory. It's not a very useful theory, but it does work. And so it sort of proves the point that like math could just be an insight into the way our brains work, something that's convenient for us and easy shorthand for us because of the way our minds work. It doesn't have to be that way for aliens. Or it could be that we have in common, and that would be an incredible discovery. But we can't take that for granted.
But it's wild to think about a spaceship that would run without math. But I can see how it's possible, right?
Yeah.
But
like,
I think,
steampunk spaceship.
We got to fermentation. We got to last week.
Exactly. You can have a biochemical combustion system that's just like you feed this goo the right amount and the engine goes. Like there's it's possible, right?
It's possible, yeah. And I had a really fun conversation. I emailed Noam Chomsky because I was thinking, who else has thought about linguistics and aliens? So I emailed him. He's famous for
also math, right?
So, he's famous for actually reading his email and answering it. And so he agreed to have a conversation with me, and I asked him this question, and he said math. He said the way to make contact with aliens is through math, because arithmetic is the foundation of all of human math, and everything builds from there, and 1 + 1 = 2 everywhere. And I saw Paul Disney there in the comments commenting about whole number integers. And that's a compelling argument, because it seems likely that 1 + 1 = 2 everywhere. But you could also imagine aliens that don't have whole number integers. What if, you're aliens that are existing as tendrils of plasma in the atmosphere of a star, and the edge of your body is not you can't really define it. So you never come up with this I'm different from you. I count myself as 1 and you as 2.
Slime mold math.
Slime mold math, yeah. So maybe they only start from real numbers, and integers are why would you even? To them, it's why would you draw this weird dotted line between your body and the rest of the universe? That doesn't make sense. That's totally arbitrary. And when you think about it, it kind of is. Where is the edge of my body? Is it? Do my hairs count? Is it my personal space? In the end, I am drawing an arbitrary.
And what about when I pick up a pen or get in a car and I'm driving the car? Is my body now the entire car?
Exactly, right. Or you lose an arm, is it still part of your body even though it's deteriorated? These seem like obvious questions, but they're very fuzzy philosophically. And that tells you, okay, there's some assumptions here. And those assumptions may strike you as obvious, but there's so many times in the history of physics and science when things that have seemed obvious about the universe have turned out to be not at all true. And the whole point of science is to not just accept our intuition, but let the data tell us. And we just don't have data about these things. We just don't know. And it could be that when the aliens come, that's when we figure out, wow, were we wrong about stuff we assumed was true.
I think your next book title is Not at All True.
That's the one right after the aliens come and tell us what's up, man.
Exactly. So you're getting at something that I actually was thinking about as I was reading through your book, and the book is it says, do aliens speak physics? And you think you're going to get into a pop culture, popular physics book. But then it's it's about animals and philosophy and all these different ideas that are not physics when it comes it's much broader. Did you plan on making a gateway book to astrophysics?
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask this question: is physics discovered or invented? And to get there, you have to know a lot about biology to understand perception, to understand how we ask questions, and philosophy to know what is the underpinnings of mathematics and why science works at all. So for me, these projects are fun because they give me an excuse to dig into something I always wanted to know more about, but haven't had an afternoon to do it. And now I'm like, oh, it's part of this project, so I'm going to go read 3 books on philosophy of numbers, and so it's super fun for me. And I originally pitched this idea for a book to my 14-year-old. It was like, what if I wrote a book about whether physics is human or universal? And he was like, yawn, that sounds really boring. And that hurt my feelings a little bit, but you got to listen to the teenagers. And so then I came back. I was like, okay, what about a book where aliens arrive and it's about whether we can talk science to them? And he was like, oh yeah, I would totally read that book. And I was telling myself,
seriously,
like,
I read this and I want to give it to my 14-year-old now. Like I do. I'm like, oh, I was reading. I'm like, Kai needs to read this book. He's gonna love it.
Because there's so many fun ideas in philosophy, and in my opinion, not enough books that explore the edge of popular physics and popular philosophy. Because hey, the reason popular physics is cool is because of philosophy. Like, why do we care where the universe came from? Because there are deep philosophical implications about what it means to be human and alive in the world. The same way
every physicist, like theoretical physicist, goes from writing books about theoretical physics to writing books about philosophy.
I know.
Everybody takes the Sean Carroll track.
Well,
like, I got tenure. I'm writing philosophy now.
Well, very flattering. Any comparison to Sean Carroll is very flattering because he did it right. You know, he actually went and learned the stuff and noticed what he's talking about. There are other physicists I won't mention.
He's a kind person.
He is a kind and modest and humble guy. Yeah, there are other physicists who make the much more common mistake of assuming that because they know physics, therefore they're experts in everything and they can opine about everything without having done the reading. And so I really didn't want to make that mistake. But I was very lucky. There are a bunch of really smart philosophers here at UC Irvine who read this and made sure that I wasn't making a fool of myself and I was correctly summarizing some of these discussions. But there's a lot of really interesting stuff in philosophy that I think more people should know about, and it's really relevant and fun to think about, not just like dry and dusty.
And I think that is also at this critical time in the United States for science, where we have this question of, okay, people know science is important. People know that it impacts their lives. They have money for science. That's great. But okay, whatever. Why do I care? That is the crux, right? Why do I care?
Yeah.
And how do you humanize science? Because the glass tower, the bubble has been isolationist for way too long. And it's making approachable books like this that break down those thought patterns and assumptions and make you start thinking. So,
oh, thank you. I agree. And the more people we can bring into science to show them the joy of curiosity and wondering about the universe, and that's why I love y'all's show.
Okay, so donuts. Why the donuts? Donuts in the book.
One of my role models as a writer is Dave Barry, and he has this column about how
was that San Francisco Chronicle or no,
the Miami
Herald. Yeah.
Miami Herald. He had this article which I will always remember. It's where he says some words are funny. Like the word weasel is funny, booger is funny. Oops. And so, you just try to like pick something whimsical and add it to each chapter is like, something to hang on to, because the idea of this book is like, there's big ideas in there, but I don't want to weigh you down. I want to break it up with a bunch of dad jokes and cartoons from my friend Andy Warner, so that you get a big idea and then something to laugh at, to make it sort of easy to read.
Throughout, there are really wonderful cartoons and lots of pop culture-y type stuff, and it's very fun. And at the beginning of each chapter, you have these sci-fi short stories, these hypothetical situations that they are actually little fun science fiction short stories.
Mm-hmm. The idea there was, we're writing a chapter about a concept. Do we have to use math? Do aliens have to use math also? And then I wanted to illustrate that and like, what would it be like to meet aliens that don't? Why would that be hard? What would be surprising about it? So we try to make a concrete scenario to illustrate each concept. Yeah. If we met aliens that had very different sensoriums or asked very different questions or whose answers we couldn't understand, what would that be like? What would we do in that scenario? How would we figure it out? I'm also a huge fan of science fiction, and so I couldn't resist the urge to write little fictional scenarios.
Have you done sci-fi short story or novel writing before?
No. So this is a first for me. But
is it your next project? Are you writing a sci-fi book next, or?
It's about, you guys have already spoiled it because it's about invading robot alien squirrels. So Thanks for ruining it.
Got it.
You heard
Well,
it
if
here
I can
first,
also
everyone.
suggest you should probably pitch to the Futurama writers room, because I know that they take a lot of scientists in there, and
Is that
and
right? Okay.
several things you brought up today. I was like, man, this sounds like an episode of Futurama. The plasma alien that doesn't know where they end and another alien begins. Futurama, right?
Futurama.
So like,
All right.
This is your next
absolutely,
stop,
yeah.
Daniel. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always been the end of my career, would be writing for Futurama.
Yes. Absolutely.
Some
Thank
people
you.
were excited about Big Bang Theory when that was going on. But Futurama.
Futurama. Yeah.
It's kind of
Yeah.
where it's at for science TV these days, except for Eleanor.
Thank you. I think we have very different audiences, but thank you. I appreciate being
Hopefully.
mentioned in the same breath as
Yeah.
Futurama.
Well, first one, then many
You know
years.
how to
later
wrap things together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't want to keep you forever and late into the night, and I know Blair probably is going to be needing to get on to her child as well this evening. Are you working on anything else right now? I mean, right now it's like, everybody, the book's available. Where can they find it? Where can they find you? But
So the book comes out November 4th, so very, very soon. And you can look it up online everywhere, and it's at alienspeakphysics.com. If you pre-order the book, you can get free stickers of some of the aliens from Aaaand. Look for the link on my website, www.alienspeakphysics.com. And I have a podcast, Daniel and Kelly's Extraordinary Universe, where we talk about biology and physics and everything in between, and have a lot of fun. And then in my day job, I'm doing particle physics, which keeps me quite busy, but I really love it. Research and teaching.
And you are going to use all the machine learning to search through that data and find something new at the Atlas.
That's the plan, exactly. Discover something new, blow your minds, collect the Nobel Prize. That's the goal, but we haven't got there yet.
And if you don't, in the meantime, you're writing great books for people to enjoy.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. It's such it's been what I said this earlier when we were before the show. I think it's about 250 or 60 episodes since we talked with you previously.
Amazing. Congrats all. Wow. Well, thank you very much for having me back on, and for reading my book, and for considering buying it. And thanks to your audience.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for chatting about science with us. Really appreciate it.
Good night.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, everybody. We are going to have a couple more stories. I have some brain news. Daniel, you don't have to leave if you don't want to. You can stay for brains. But we had, it was a nice, easy out. It was good.
My daughter
and
is
we do
texting me,
have
so
to find out about Blair's panda poop. So
Yes, that's still coming.
I should probably go. My daughter is texting me something, but it's been wonderful. Thank you very
I
much.
know how it goes. Thank
right.
you very
Good
much.
night.
I hope that we
Good
get to
night.
speak again soon. Take care.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, Blair.
Yes.
I need your panda poop. You
Okay.
brought it.
Do you want to play my theme song first?
No. Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Like, what is this show that we're doing? I got confused. People say they're going to leave. Let's see. I need to get right. I'm going to do this. Look, we're This Week in Science. We're back again, everybody. All right, everyone. Thank you for being here for this great interview with Daniel Whiteson, his book, Do Aliens Speak Physics? Now it is time for the next part of our show, the part you know and love as Blair's Animal Corner with Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair? What you got, Blair?
So, let's talk panda poop. So,
Yay.
here's what's going to happen. I'm going to explain this story to you. I am going to harken back to a panda poo related story from 10 years ago. I cannot believe that.
Oh my.
So we're going to get there. When you're like, this sounds like something maybe we've talked about on this show before. It's similar.
We have.
So I will explain. Okay. So this is a study all about how pandas and bears' gut microbiome is different if they are in captivity or in the wild. And I know you're all saying, duh. Which you're right. Duh. Right? Our microbiome is different if we live in San Francisco or Portland or the United States or Italy or Portugal or like Antarctica.
The man.
Like it's literally anywhere. Your microbiome is different based on where you are because of just environmental factors, but also based on what you eat, on nutrient availability, on genetics. There are many different things that go into the fact that your microbiome will be different based on where you live. And so on its face, just saying that a microbiome is different from captive animals versus wild animals, duh. You're being fed a stable diet by people who take care of you versus foraging or hunting for food in the wild. You are just physically in a different place with different microbes on surfaces, in the soil, in the air, right? You're being exposed to humans, which you might not be exposed to at other times, and other animals. But also different levels of stress, right? Not to mention different genetic stock if you are in captivity, right? So there's lots of different kind of reasons that a microbiome could be different. What this study is talking about is how it's different. How does it vary, and is it good? Is it bad? Is there an issue related to the difference between captive microbiome versus wild microbiome? So this is a research study out of China. They did a poop test. They collected fecal samples from wild and captive members of 3 endangered species. That is giant pandas, red pandas, and Asiatic black bears. So when they said pandas and bears, that's what they literally meant. Giant pandas, which is a kind of bear.
Out group, or are they all related closely?
So here's why I think they did. They didn't say exactly why this was the 3 that they picked. So you have your giant pandas and your black bears. They're both bears. You have your red pandas. Giant pandas and red pandas are both pandas, which means they are bamboo eaters. So you have it's kind of a Venn diagram, right? So you have your bear that isn't a true omnivore. You have your bear that eats like a panda, and you have your panda, right? So
okay. Okay.
So you're kind of covering all your bases.
Mm-hmm.
So they looked at wild versus captive members of these species. They used RNA sequencing. They identified different types of bacteria present in the samples. And so they were looking at ribosomal RNA. They processed the data with statistical tools, and they scored and ranked based on diet, genetics, and captivity to the animal's gut microbiome. So they're getting at all these different factors that I mentioned. They found that in captivity, the environment, being a research center or a zoo, that was actually the biggest single factor driving change in gut microbiome structure. There was a 21.6% change in microbiome structure based on being a research center or zoo versus in the wild. However, lineage, genetics explained a 12.3% shift, and diet alone looked at there was a 3.9% change. So overall, trying to kind of zero out potential different confounding variables. The physical location they were in, being in captivity, had this huge impact on the microbiome in these animals. And they found that the gut bacteria of all of the species were more similar to each other in captivity, even though they were distinct in the wild, which again makes sense, especially if you're taking all of these from the same physical space, because they are being exposed to the same people, the same cleaning products, the same, like I said, soil, air,
right,
visitors, right? A lot of the environmental microbiome that you could get absorbed to over development, right? And so there was this similarity, whether you were a black bear, a giant panda, or a red panda, there was more similarity amongst these very distinct groups who lived in captivity. They also found something kind of unexpected, which was that there was a change in the animal's digestive capabilities. So wild bears and pandas had proteobacteria that helped break down complex plant material. But in captivity, all of them were dominated by firmicutes, which are associated... Firmicutes, thank you. Cuties, which are associated with fermentation of starches and sugars. And so
which would make sense for the bamboo, right? Or
it would, but it would also make sense for things like kibble, which is what you're getting in captivity. A lot more gluten, a lot about it.
Do the pandas eat kibble, or is it just the bears?
So good question. I don't know about this particular institution. I know that bears always get a certain amount of chow. So it's possible that it was offered, that they make a particular bamboo eater chow that they would provide to these animals. I don't know. But it's very possible. There's, considering that, there's an entire industry of specialized chows for zoo animals to try to round out the carbs that they need in their diet. And so one of the other things that they found was that living in captivity had an increase in potentially harmful bacteria like Streptococcus. And so again, also that might have to do with the fact that they are in more confined space. They can't get distance from where they go to the bathroom as well. There could be cleaning issues. Are people not scrubbing in and out of spaces appropriately? Or, there could be any number of reasons related to that. But so the main takeaway from this paper is that this 20% change in microbiome from being in captivity versus being in the wild means one thing. It doesn't mean that being in captivity is bad. But it does mean that you can't take a wild panda and plop them, a captive panda and plop them into the wild, or a captive Asiatic black bear and plop them into the wild, because their microbiome is not suited to the wild diet.
Especially if that's how they have grown up, right?
Right.
If they're multiple generations in captivity.
Right. And so this is a concern for fitness post-release. And so there is a call from this research team for conservationists to explore the idea of using probiotics or fecal transplants if there is an intention to introduce an animal that was raised in captivity to the wild. And so while I have my own tangent about pandas that I'm going to bring in related to 2015, as I kind of teased before in a minute, the overarching kind of takeaway from this story, I think, is really important to conservation as a whole, in that whether this is something that's been looked at or not, I think it needs a second look in reintroductions in general. So there's a lot of things that are paid attention to with reintroductions. Does an animal know how to forage or hunt? Does an animal have all of the adaptations that they would have as a wild animal? Are they imprinted on humans or not? There's lots of things that you look at before you release an animal into the wild that was raised in captivity. But how closely are we tracking the microbiome? Like for the condors that we mentioned at the beginning, do those condors have a microbiome well suited to eating carrion in Pinnacles National Park, right? Like, are they ready? And you are muted, it sounds like.
I did mute myself. Sorry. With the condors and with other like avian and other, hand rearing situations where you rear animals and you know this also, but where you have the intent of rearing an animal so that it can be introduced to the wild, there is minimal contact. They try and do, with cranes and condors, they do like these special behaviors where they wear wings and they do things they have gloves so that they can feed the babies as
it's a puppet.
if they're it's a puppet that, oh, this is a parent condor. No, it's not, but close enough. And a lot of it, though, is it's not with concern for the microbiome. It's concern for scent and vision. So the senses. What is the growing animal going to basically latch onto for its stereotyping behaviors moving forward, right? When it becomes an adult, what is it going to find attractive? Is it going to run at a car because he thinks the car is mommy?
Right.
We don't want anything to smell like a human because then human smelling things will be okay and acceptable, right?
So comfortable, a source of food. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But it's never, as far as I know, I don't think I've ever heard of anybody taking the microbiome into account.
No. And so I think that this is a huge,
I'm outside of that.
This is a huge question. That's just like with human health. We're just starting really to look at this stuff and talk about, probiotics have been part of the conversation for a long time, but kind of with a lot of smoke and mirrors of just like, hey, bacteria is good for you. Just take this yogurt. It's fine. But the kind of scientific approach of it, the surgical approach of what is your microbiome? What do you have lacking? What did your microbiome used to be? There's so far to go with human health that I think it makes sense that we're kind of just starting this conversation, but it needs to be addressed. Because if this is happening with black bears and pandas, it is likely happening with other animals as well. Because,
I'm just thinking, though, how you go sometimes to a foreign country, and because your body's not familiar with the microbes in a foreign country, suddenly you end up in bed or the bathroom for 2 to 3 days, and your vacation is ruined, right? You're doing that to an animal, right? You release an animal into the wild and suddenly they're foraging on their own. They're coming from their zoo or basically very clinical environment, even though it's dirt and whatever. It's not the wild.
Yeah.
And the food.
Well,
and all the
where
things.
we might miss our sightseeing and spend a couple days in the hotel room, they might actually get eaten because they are ill, right? So, or they might miss mating season, or they might not migrate appropriately, or they might starve or die of dehydration.
Or they're feeling a little gassy and they just stay in the, in the cave a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a huge question. And so just to kind of address that, I have talked about the panda microbiome before. This raised questions for me about this study that I talked about, which I could not believe was from 2015. And this was looking at the microbiome of pandas. And this is where one of the funniest things about pandas to me came up during my time on the show, which is that it seems like pandas always have a stomach ache, right? It's because they don't have the right bacteria to process bamboo. And so
is it because they're in captivity?
Right. So that was my first question, was where did these pandas come from? So like, where did the poop come from? What is the poop source of these pandas? And so it took me a minute because a lot of it was paywalled now because it's so old. But I found some information.
It should be free now that it's so old. Come on.
I don't know. It disappeared from a lot of my usual sources, but I was able to find it. And so they sequenced bacteria from fecal samples from giant pandas living in a research base. So this is still a captivity environment. And so what they found over the course of spring, summer, and late autumn for a whole year is that they ate about 10 kilograms of bamboo leaves, but the gut bacteria was similar to carnivorous and omnivorous bears, but different from plant eaters. And so this is where this whole kind of joke that we started about them always having a tummy ache came from, because they don't have the right microbiome to eat bamboo. And now I want this study redone with wild pandas Because what were they feeding these pandas in this research base? Because they said they're eating 10 kilograms of bamboo. Are they eating anything else?
But didn't they say they're like, oh, they have the microbiome for a carnivorous
Yes, that's
bear.
Correct.
Like they should be eating meat, but they're eating bamboo. And then there was a later study that was like, oh, there's something that, whatever, but they still didn't answer the question. And so yeah. I love this question, Blair.
Yes. So I think that it is a related but different study. So that was looking at, is their microbiome more similar to a bear or a red panda, the original panda? So this is that like Venn diagram I was talking about. And so they found that their gut microbiome was more similar to the black bear, basically. But this is in captive pandas. So if there is a 20% variance in the microbiome from captivity to the wild, then I can't help but wonder, if you pulled fecal samples from wild pandas, would you find the same thing? Would you find that microbiome is similar to a black bear versus a red panda, or would you find that it is more similar to a panda? I don't know.
I think this is a great question. I don't know either. I want to know if anybody knows.
So all that to say, I still think pandas are ridiculous.
I mean, honestly, they haven't done this test on wild pandas because there aren't that many of them.
Yeah, they're just hard to. Anyway, they spook easily, all that good stuff. But
they do like to play. They're cute.
Yeah, they also get lost really easily, which was another study that I loved that came out recently. They're just lost all the time. Anyway,
why do you have to know where you are when you're just in a research institute all the time or a zoo?
I want to acknowledge that this is one of those situations where panda research gets a lot of money, and ultimately, I think panda research is stupid because there are animals that we could save that we are not doing research on and have ecological importance way higher than that of pandas, right? And so this is where condors are very different from pandas, because condors have a very important role in an ecosystem. They actually care about reproduction. They're not as ridiculous. So anyway, point being that I get frustrated sometimes with panda research, but I think it's important to acknowledge when a piece of research that was panda research, and I'm doing my little air quotes here for those of you listening, this funding and interest and attention that was paid to pandas in this research project, looking at the microbiome, has the opportunity to benefit lots of other endangered species and reintroduction programs. And so for that, I just wanted to acknowledge that this is a potential win in conservation. Thank you to panda conservation efforts in this case.
I mean, the pandas themselves, but there's a lot of the broader ecosystem and other stuff that it's the big keystone. You conserve the keystone-ish species and you get other benefits.
Yeah, but the pandas, they don't have that big of an impact on the bamboo forest. This is part of my problem with them. They don't really do anything. But in this case,
poking. Sorry.
They're very cute, so they get money.
Yes.
They're like a flagship species for China, so a lot of research goes to Chinese research institutions to study pandas. And so if we can use that to our advantage for conservation as a whole, I think that is amazing.
We gotta control the pandas, the research. It is amazing. The more good, the better. Share it, everybody. All right. We need to finish this show, so I am going to very quickly go through a few stories that I thought were very interesting this week. Researchers have, I think they're at MIT. They have created a system they're calling multicellular integrated brains, or my brains, MI brains. They're brain organoids, so little tiny clumps of cells in a dish, maybe like the size of a dime or so. Whereas before, historically, you could put a single cell type in a petri dish and maybe find out, oh, the neurons grow together and blah, that's great. What they have done with these brain organoids is they have systematically tested different proportions of different kinds of cells together and been able to create a complex system that is grown from individual donors induced pluripotent stem cells and can be customizable through gene editing and can have it's 3D human brain tissue that can have all major brain cell types in it. Parasites, astrocytes, endothelial cells, neurons, oligodendroglia. I haven't said that one before. And microglia and more. So they have the ability of creating basically systems in which you can have you can go and create a mini brain in your lab, and it can have blood cells, neurons, astrocytes, glial cells, all of the things that are necessary to study the metabolic dysfunction of Alzheimer's disease, for instance. Because you can grow blood vessels closely to neurons and astrocytes, you can create the blood-brain barrier and immune system ecosystem that can recapitulate disease states, because you can edit the genes that say, oh, the astrocytes have, there's an issue with the ApoE4 gene, or there's an issue with mitochondrial function, or there's this. And you can grow these little tiny, like dime-sized clumps of multiple cell types. This, my brain is going to be amazing, and it's going to help me live longer with my cognitive function, I hope. It's kind of amazing. And it's beautiful too. These brains are these cells, they've got multiple blends of cells that you can put together. You can the study that they just published, it goes over all of the things that's in the proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences this week. And the group that has published it says it's the my brain. I don't know. Maybe they're calling it me brain. My brain is the only
me brain. You scientist.
Seriously. It's the only in vitro system that contains all 6 major cell types that are present in the human brain. They've enabled research to discover how one of the most common genetic markers for Alzheimer's disease alters cells' interactions to produce pathology. Maybe my brain will help us get to...
My brain. I like my brain.
I like my brain. I can't help it.
It's my brain.
Yeah, these are the kinds of things that make me laugh. Anyway, I think it's a really pretty amazing advancement. My brain, it might move neuroscience therapeutic research forward in major ways.
Cool.
And Blair, you know how you brought to the show the planarian research about how they chopped off the body and grew the body, chopped off the head, regrew the head. And it was like, how do they do that? What are the planarians doing? And so researchers just published a study of this, basically the immortal flatworms, the planaria. This study came out in Cell Reports last week. The researchers determined in the study that when, like humans, we have stem cells, and those stem cells, when they're in like a certain organ or a certain part of your body, they're responding to all the instructions in that part of your body. So if your liver is damaged, you have stem cells in the liver that are, be more liver
Make more
cells.
liver.
The planaria, however, they don't have those niche controls. Their stem cells do not respond to the cells near them. There's no like neighborhood that controls them in the way that human tissues are controlled. So they don't know all of the details or the genes and everything that's involved, but they have seen that there are some cells that it's like, okay, my gut is missing. I'm not getting instructions from my gut anymore. So maybe we should build something that brings the gut back. So it's the stem. Ideally, where this research will go is in understanding the controls on stem cells. We can potentially use this understanding to help us grow new organs, new limbs, to treat losses moving forward, spinal cord injuries, these kinds of things.
That's interesting. I will say, I was always kind of, such a weird thing to say, I was always kind of charmed by flatworms in all of my various biology classes. Well, their diagrams are very cute. They look like they're wearing a little hat, and they have these little pinprick eyes, and they have their very simple body plan, and you're just kind of like,
I mean, they are
just doing it. It's just,
they're worms. They're worms.
Ish. kind of worms, kind of.
They're little flat worms.
But I think the thing that is interesting, but also I feel like I'm not getting my hopes up too high related to this, is that there's just so simple, right? It's like a jack of all trades, master of none situation, right? Like they have these stem cells that they're not being given specific directions because they don't have a complicated body plan, right? It's not analogous to our specialized systems, right?
It is bilaterally symmetrical, and it has a head to tail. So like it doesn't have a spine, a notochord, but it does.
But it has specialized regions of their body.
They have a head, they have a gut, they have a gut that's separate from the brain. They have a little nervous system. So planarians actually, as far as like simple organisms to understand the controls that limit stem cells or that that open them up and make them more limitless, because that's one of the things also, like we have, for instance, spinal cord injuries. Because of neighborhood limitations, the nerves don't grow as quickly, and so you don't have the repair function to allow the nerves to regrow. But if you could make the instructions different, the nerves would be like, yeah, I need a new gut. No. I'm gonna grow a leg. Why not?
You just see a flatworm with one little, like, I just can't help but picture like a doll's leg poking out, like a baby leg. Yep, there you go.
You're welcome. Anyway, researchers are looking into how they regrow these body parts, and it's very interesting. So I was excited to see this study because I thought it would be fun to show it to you.
That's awesome.
One that Justin would have liked and probably would have brought if he were here this week is the fact, not a fact, but a new idea about the human brain. Researchers looked at a whole bunch of old dead ancient human teeth, and they're like, there's a lot of lead in them. And so they're like, oh yeah, people probably went in caves and there's water coming in the walls of the caves, and like, oh yeah, we probably drank the water in the caves and there's lead in the caves. And so early humans probably suffered massively from lead poisoning, which would have limited brain development, led to limitations in language development, and this is Neanderthals also, and would have led to higher rates of aggression.
Okay.
They determined that there is a gene mutation, even though we are still injured, and lead poisoning is damaging and does lead to these terrible things now. So lead pipes, get rid of them, fix your sewer, like fix the water supply, everybody. Let's make humanity better, less aggressive, smarter, better. We can do this. We can. But the fact that we are not hurt more by lead poisoning in our modern societies is thanks to a mutation that we got. It's one mutation that is just slightly shifted from the original version. And it allows us to withstand the lead poisoning a little bit more. They did
it's from a common ancestor between us and Neanderthals, or it's from, because you said,
yeah. So they what they found is that we outcompeted Neanderthal cousins because we got this gene variant.
Got it. Okay.
And so they grew brain organoids with Neanderthal gene variants and human variants. They determined that there is a difference in modern humans, and this Nova, the modern human version of Nova 1, when they took Neanderthal cells. No, they edited neuronal cells to have the old version that Neanderthals had and the modern human version that we have. And then they gave them lead, and the neurons with the modern human version did much better. So the idea is that thanks to, and there's been a question, and Justin would probably get at this, there's been a question about how Neanderthals spoke, language that they might have had, how much aggression they had, whatever. Maybe they were lead poisoned and they couldn't talk to each other. I have no idea.
They were just angry all the time.
They're angry,
confused.
And they couldn't talk. They're like, whatever. But humans, then we got our mutation and we were like, I can handle a little lead poisoning. It's not that bad.
Still bad. Still bad. To be clear.
Let's still be warlike. Okay.
Yeah. I think, you guys like to make a lot of fun about how young I am, but I think I'm now often the older person in the room who's like, I'm of the last generation of lead-based paint and asbestos.
The last generation.
Yeah. No, for real. Like, while I was in high school, they started abating asbestos and lead-based paint in all the public schools. Like that, I really feel like that was the end of that era, at least in, California. But yeah, I think it's very wild. We make it such a big deal out of lead poisoning and how terrible it can be to our bodies and our brains, and that we actually have an advantage compared to other organisms, and their processing of lead is shocking to me, honestly.
It's amazing. We've been lead poisoned so much and we've gotten this far.
So the poor animals getting all the runoff from all of the lead products that we have.
It's why we can't talk to them.
Oh, that's why. They're just mad. They're like, you're dumping all this gross stuff. No, thank you. I'm not going to talk to you.
And finally, there's one last study that I thought was just fun for the end of the show, out in Communications Biology a couple of weeks back. Researchers looked at 577 people who previously, years ago, had watched an excerpt from the Alfred Hitchcock Prevents series, an excerpt, 8 minutes of an episode called Bang, You're Dead. And while they were watching it, fMRI scans. So they had a measure of these individuals from 18 to 88 of their brains as they watched this video clip. And the research previously, they were able to determine that this particular video clip, for whatever reason, maybe it's the black and white Alfred Hitchcockness, maybe it's the storytelling, whatever it is, it leads to really high levels of brain synchronization. So like at certain points in the 8 minutes, most brains are doing pretty much the same thing. And so it's kind of a control, right? For this is your brain on Alfred Hitchcock. And they took those people now, they'd previously watched it, had their brain recorded, and they had them do it again and find out whether or not their brain readings changed over time. What they're trying to answer the question of is, what is it that makes it seem like time goes faster as you get older? And so one of the things they saw in this is that the older adults, the fMRI recordings that they just used now, that the older adults, their brains shifted to a new activity state less frequently. So younger adults were more synchronized in how their brain responded and when different activity states were happening. And older adults, between the first time that they did this watching and this new time, the older adults had fewer shifts in their activity state over time, whereas the younger adults are like, new thing. The brain's constantly keeping track of stuff all the time. Yes. Yes.
How do we know it has to do with their age and not with the fact that they've seen it before?
That was my question also. I mean, I love the idea of controlling and being like, I watched this at this one point and now I watched it at this other point. And so I think it would have been better if they had it. I'm watching it now this first time, and then I'm immediately watching it again right after, because then it's kind of close in time. Or even this time around, if they'd had two basically immediate watchings.
Well, there's also diminishing returns, right? Like if you've seen something 2 times versus if you've seen something 5 times, things feel more familiar.
Everyone in this study had seen it once before.
Right. So
no matter what age.
To me, it would make more sense to do a massive study, a massive sample size of 25-year-olds watching it for the first time and a massive sample size of 45-year-olds watching it for the first time. Because then everyone's watching it at the same time. If your sample size is large enough, you can say, this kind of averages out to how a brain reacts to this thing.
Yeah. Which is what they were trying to do, but they were trying to do it, but they were, they had to get make different groups. And so their groups were 18 to 42, 43 to 63, and 64 to 88. And they did find that age affected the duration of neural state. So basically, like I said, that there people who stayed within the same age range, that 18 to 42 age range, they kept having fast activity state shifting, but the older adults, theirs got slower, so they didn't shift as much. Anyway, the researchers suggest that it's because of this kind of shift in activity awareness, or the brain, the brain is shifting in what it's doing at different times. And so because the neural states become longer with increasing age in visual, and they say also ventromedial prefrontal cortices, that this has something to do with how we perceive events in time. So preserving alignment between neural states and perceived events suggests that there's coarse event segmentation that remains intact. But the bottom line is basically your brain is like, I don't see a lot of stuff going on anymore. Like, I know everything already. Fine. Not surprised. Fine. Not surprised. Whereas a younger person,
right? How much of it is just about like exposure to the world? How much of it is having an old brain that is less plastic? Like, what is causing this to happen? Is it that it's novelty is not novel anymore, or is it that like your brain is just not as good at braining?
Oh, thank you. I hope my brain stays good at braining. Oh my God.
I mean, if nothing else, I want my brain to be a good brainer. That's what I want.
Yeah. I mean, the question is your brain shifting into different activity states, how does that impact your logging of events? And so if your brain
Right.
is like on this, like, I'm turning over at a different pace, I'm turning over at a different pace. Da, da, da. It's like a mouse versus an elephant.
Well, and also, like, I would argue, yes, I understand the metaphor you're pulling here, but like, I'm having trouble understanding if that's good or bad, or if that's even part of this study. Like, is it bad? Is it bad that the brain is not recognizing new activity states as often in an older brain, or is that good because the brain is more practiced at responding to the world, right? Like, and that's kind of what I was getting at. Is this a judgment call on, like, this is an old and tired brain that is not as good, like I was saying, as good at being a brain, right? Like, or like, yes, like, is there a judgment associated? Is there a quality associated?
This study, not judging quality, no, they're not looking at that. But what they were seeing is that there is this shift, right? Younger brains are more, they change state more often. And so that means they're logging more events. And so it's this kind of, because more things are happening within one smaller span of time seems longer. But because older adults are like, your brain is like, it's fine, nothing new. Time gets shrunken and condensed because you're not logging as many new events. And so this is the other question, is like, if they had shown a new video to the older adults, would it have been fine, haven't seen this before, logging new event, and suddenly it seems longer. And so I think your question is well taken.
Yes, but also, like, I think it's so easy for us to associate the quality of young versus old as young is better. We've talked on the show about young blood and how young blood is better than old blood, right? Like literally
better, it's just different.
But it reduced inflammation. It made mice live longer. Young blood was better, right? So, like, but I think it's easy to assume that a young brain is better, but there might be actually cases where an older brain is better because you carry more knowledge and experience, and so there's actually, the brain is special. It's sure over time, as you get like an old brain is probably worse.
But that's going to be, similar also, like, if you can keep inflammation down, does the old brain act like an old brain?
Right. Like, so do you want an old brain with young blood?
Yes, that's what I want. Did that sound bad? I'm like, yes.
No, that's what I want. That's how I'm going to get to 200. Old brain, young blood.
Old brain, young blood, good friends.
Papa John's.
You know how to slice it. Oh my gosh. All right. On that note, have we done it?
Yes.
Yeah, we made it to the end of this show. What a great show. How much fun.
This is great.
We're all getting older together.
Yeah.
I hope it flew for you tonight. Maybe no, I don't know. I hope you enjoyed the whole show. Thank you so much for listening. Fada, thank you for all your help with social media. I know that we had some issues this week. Thank you for persevering. Identity 4, thank you for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for editing the show. I really appreciate that. And all of you in the chat room, thank you for chatting, for making your comments. We see you in there. It's so fun to be able to see those comments and see when new people come in. I saw who is the new Matt Baluos. I see you in there. There's Uziel. We've got Fada, Identity 4, all sorts of great people in the chat room. Gord, Arnlore, others, not just in the YouTube, but also Twitch and other places. Thank you for keeping the chat space a really great space to be. I appreciate all of you being compassionate, respectful, and just having a good conversation here. Let's all do this well together. It's all about that, everybody. And of course, big thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you to Aaron Anathema, Adam Mishkan, Alan Viola, Ali Coffin, Andrew Swanson, Arthur Kepler, Artyom, Bob Calder, Bob Coles, Brendan Minish, Brian Carrington, Chris Wozniak, Christopher Dreyer, Christopher Rappin, Craig Landon, Craig Potts, Dana Lewis, Daryl Myshak, Dave Wilkinson, David E. Youngblood, Don Mundis, Donathan Styles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, E.O., Eden Mundell, Eric Knapp, Flying Out, Fredis 104, G. Burton Lattimore, George Chorus, Greg Briggs, Jack, Jason Olds, John Atwood, John McKee, John Ratnaswamy, Johnny Gridley, Ken Hayes, Kent Northcote, Kevin Parachan, Kevin Reardon, Kurt Larson, Lon Makes, Lauren Gifford, Mary Gertz, Marjorie, Mark Hessenflow, Noodles, Patrick Pecoraro, Paul Disney, Paul Ronovich, Philip Shane, Pierre Velazar, P.I.G., Richard Badge, Robert Norland, Robert Farley, Rodney Lewis, Rudy Garcia, Remy Day, Sean Clarence Lamb, Shubru, Stephen Alberon, Steve Leaksman, a.k.a. Zima Suit, Oster Teresa Smith, Tony Steele, and Bakard Chefstad. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. And if any of you are able to head over to TWIS and click on the Patreon link, you too can have your name mispronounced with flair at the end of the show. No, we appreciate it very much because it is your support that helps keep this show going. We do appreciate you. And on next week's show,
we will be back.
Yeah.
My entire screen went black. Hold on.
You're still here. I hear you. Okay.
All right. The Matrix glitched. I'm back. All right. We will be back on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific time, broadcasting live from our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels.
Yeah. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, just search for This Week in Science wherever great podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe too.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes and links to our stories will be available on our website. That's at www.twis.org. You can also sign up for our newsletter,
which Blair will send. No, I'm kidding. No, I mean, seriously, do you want to hear me write about things? I've been thinking about just writing about things lately. I might do it. I'll just have to email Blair and get the password. But it'll be great. Well, we should send newsletters. We should do that. It'd be great. That'd be fun. What a thing. What a thing if we did that. You should totally subscribe. We'd love your feedback. If there's a topic that you would like us to cover or address or a suggestion for an interview, please let us know on one of our social media accounts or send us an email. Make sure you put TWIS in that subject line so your email doesn't get spam filtered into. Blair, where should it not get spam filtered into?
Oh, yeah. You got to put TWIS in the subject line or your email will end up in a plastic baggie in a fridge alongside a fecal specimen from an undisclosed species. Mm-hmm.
Nobody's gonna. Nope, just the microbiologist, and we don't have one of those here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we look forward to discussing science with you again next week. And if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. Science, 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 science. I've got one disclaimer and it shouldn't be news. That what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations
And that is the after show, my friends. We are done with our episode. We are here at the time of night that Blair says, I have to get up at 5 in the morning and it's tired time, so we should go home, which is really true. We should
Is
all...
that what I sound like, Kiki? Is that what my voice sounds?
No.
Okay, all right, just checking.
No, Blair says, I gotta get up in the morning. I gotta go.
Oh, no, I think I like the first one better.
You like my voice this morning?
I don't sound anything like that. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you don't. You don't at all. Oh, thanks everyone for being here for this show. Daniel was fantastic. He was so fun to talk to. Like, there are these people within science who are such great communicators and just they do it so well. I'm like, dude, even if you don't get that Nobel Prize, you should be so proud of yourself for all of the work that you're doing. This is amazing.
I think it's really smart to toss your book ideas out to a 14-year-old. I think this is genius.
Right.
Because I think
boring.
like, no, I think it's really smart because it does allow you to encompass like the ability to catch somebody's attention, to be interesting, and also to appeal to a wider audience, because a scientist's 14-year-old son is, still going to be inclined potentially to listen to their parent talk about science, but they might have a greater clue at being more universally like tilted in perspective, right? And I think that they're also savage, right? They will tell you exactly what they think.
Yeah. Like, oh, boring. But you talked about talking to an alien and how you do that. I'd read that. When a 14-year-old says, I'd read that. Okay.
My headphones just died, so.
Oh, that's where that came from. That's what Blair, Paul, that's what you sound tonight. Oh, there's a little bit of a delay there. It's fantastic. The headphones died.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we're gonna.
Yeah, my sound might go into the fecal sample in the fridge in a moment here because I'm using external speakers now. It's very bad.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah.
I speak more quietly, then it's better. But StreamYard doesn't like to. It's not like Zoom. It doesn't like to stop the feedback.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, that's my cutoff, I guess, is 2.5 hours is when the headphones are like, are you still talking?
Yeah, that was great. We had a good time. Yes, that's the good night face. That's the good night TWIS face. That's very Paul Disney.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Yes, Slough House. So good. I'm watching season 3. Yes. I don't think I get to watch it tonight, but tomorrow or Friday. It's going to be so good. Oh, and The Diplomat has a new season. I'm so excited about that. The Diplomat is one of the best shows on TV ever. It's like West Wing or like, it's so good. The writing is so good. I love it. But anyway,
Nice.
Let's all go get sleep.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for a super fun show, Kiki.
Thank you. That was good. I'm glad you brought your stories and you were here and that your child let you be here.
I'll be sure to thank him tomorrow.
Please do.
Eventually he'll understand.
he's not ever going to understand. How many years has it, like, Kai would be like,
Yeah.
go away. He wanted to be in the middle of it. Yeah. It comes around. That's great. Your child should see you doing things you love.
Yeah.
And that not just things that you succeed at, things that you like, things that make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
And not just as only mom always just there for you. For that.
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah.
He started asking me questions about my job and stuff, which is interesting.
Oh,
but yeah,
that's cool.
He's a pretty smart kid.
Duh. Not surprised. Yeah. With great parents. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so good. And then you can watch Eleanor Asks Why.
Mm-hmm.
It's a cute show. It's really good.
Yeah.
It's one of the good ones.
Yeah, we do watch some PBS already, so there you go.
Mm-hmm. We know someone who made one.
Yeah, that's so cool.
It's open. All right, everybody. Say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Kiki.
Good night, Kiki. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for another great episode. For the next week, stay safe. Stay well. Stay healthy. Go get your shots if you can, and you haven't. End of October, apparently, is the time to do it. Flu, COVID, RSV, if you can do it right now. End of October. Prime time. If you haven't, they're available. Let's go do it. And stay curious and stay lucky. We'll see you again next week. Hope you're all well. Be well. Good night. Thank you for being here. And I hit my microphone. Good night.